Follow the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Here we go. It is Follow the Money on VSiN, the sports betting network. Mitch Moss along with Paulie Howard. We are live in downtown Las Vegas from the Circa Resort and Casino here on a busy Thursday. Fun program, informative program, opinionated program coming up over the next 3 hours. Like I said, Paul Charchian in 30 minutes, 2 full segments with him on fantasy for week 2 and player props that he likes tonight and this weekend. Drew Butler, former kicker at Georgia. Why has this number moved so much Tennessee's way? We'll ask him about that. Steve Wist, the meat man, best bets in soccer. John Keim tonight, who covers the Commanders, with a Thursday Night Football preview coming up a little bit later on, Paulie. And on the screen right now, I see that DraftKings is at 3.5 in the game tonight, minus 118 if you want to take it with the Commanders, minus 102 on the Packers. Pretty much every other spot has Green Bay minus 3 now in the game, with various juice on that as well. Did you know that Circa opened up 4.5 right away on Sunday night?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
VSiN's very own Dogger Pass man, Dave Tooley, grabbed the 4.5, and then he was on the network that night with Scott Seidenberg, and he said, I still absolutely would recommend plus the 4. So that's the direction in which this bad boy's been moving now. I agree with it. I grabbed 3.5 earlier today, minus 115 on the Commanders.
All right, good. I like the Packers. I know they're coming off a perfect game. Washington didn't play well, but I think Green Bay can move the ball on this Washington defense. It's a whole different ball game going against the Giants. And I want to see what Parsons can do as well, that he wasn't out there a lot, but had a big impact on the game when he was out there against Detroit. And we'll see what happens today with that defense. And carried away, all aboard on the Packer bandwagon from 23-1 to 8-1 to win it all, and the NFC odds as well. Crazy what's going on with the futures.
So we're on opposite sides of this one for tonight. I'll give you a rundown of some week 2 trends in recent years, if it means anything to you, coming up in a few minutes. But here's one reason why I like the Commanders, but we'll find out a little bit more probably 90 minutes or so before game time tonight, like who is actually going to be active and inactive. And I'll say this on the Packers side, Bo Melton, cornerback, he is out. Brenton Cox, D-lineman, he is out. But my biggest question mark are the following 2 players for Green Bay. Guard Aaron Banks and then offensive lineman Zach Tom. They're both questionable. If they can't go in this game tonight, I'll give you an example here. Will Anderson for Houston in the offseason was asked about the most difficult offensive lineman that he's faced in his career so far. His answer, Zach Tom from Green Bay. So he's very good. And if they're without both guys, I think Love's going to feel a little bit of the pressure tonight by this front for the Commanders. And also, I was unaware of this because we have not been allowed to bet at DraftKings because they own the company for so long. So I never really looked at this until today. You can bet individual players. I knew that you could bet individual players to get a sack at some spots, but they offer over a quarter sack. So if a guy contributes to a sack and he gets a half a sack, that's going to be a winner. And like, for example, Payne tonight, Daron Payne, over a quarter sack, plus 302. Payne had 2 sacks last week. Armstrong is 2-1 over a quarter sack. He had 6 pressures on Russell Wilson, 1 sack and 5 hurries, and 2 other players will throw at you. Kinlaw had 3 pressures and 2 quarterback hits plus 1 hurry. Over a quarter sack tonight is plus 394. And then, like, does Von Miller play? We'll find out again a little bit later on. He's plus 196. And if it's going to be, we're talking no Zach Tom, no Aaron Banks, I would like to attack it by betting all those guys over a quarter sack tonight.
Well, they had time to game plan, though, all week, too. And LaFleur's an excellent coach.
That he is.
And see if they'll have something ready to get it out fast. I know they want to take shots down the field, but ground and pound and a lot of Jacobs, too. So they have a lot of talented players and a lot of weapons. I'm high on this Golden kid, but also they were just didn't get to showcase all their stars last week because they were sitting on the big lead and the defense was all over. Oh, DraftKings just went to 3-2 now. Man.
Did they move to 3?
It was just run the ball with Jacobs and the defense was all over. Goff and embarrassed Detroit. So I give them the edge because of the short turnaround and being at home and the fact that do with this what you want. LaFleur has been unbelievable. He's what, 12-0? ATS week 2 and week 3.
Yeah.
So that's also strong as well.
He's very good. Let me give you some other numbers here with like recent trends. Steve Makinen, vsin.com. Must read every single week. In the first half of the season, home teams are 25-22 straight up on Thursday Night Football, but only 15-30-2 ATS, 33% in the last 47 games going back to 2018. And when you dig even deeper, since 2016, home teams in weeks 9 and later are 44-27 straight up, 42-26-3 ATS, 62%. And Steve provides his analysis on that as well. And it makes a lot of sense. Like right away, there's no like real travel spot. I know it's a Thursday night here, week 2 for Washington, but later on in the year, it really catches up with the road teams. Early on in the season has not been a big deal. Teams playing a second straight home game in week 2 and are favored are 14-10 straight up, but 5-19 ATS over the last 3 years. That would be Green Bay tonight. You're down 16 units with that. And I'll give you some other numbers from VSiN host Steve Makinen. You can follow, or check that Scott Seidenberg. You can follow him on X at Scott's On Air. Since the start of the 2021 season, that's when we expanded to 17 games, and the preseason went down to 3 weeks. Dogs in week 2 are 37-21-4 against the spread, covering on average by 1.7 points per game. And teams that won in week 1 and then are favored in week 2 are 11-21 with 3 pushes ATS since then. That would be Green Bay. And when those 1-0 favorites are home in week 2, only 5-15-1 ATS. So if you buy into the week 1, week 2 trend stuff, it's all anti-Green Bay here in this spot. Another one, if a team won their week 1 game by 10-plus points, in week 2, they're 13-14 ATS, and only 5-11 ATS, failing to cover by 1.9 points per game when listed as a favorite in week 2. So strong stuff there on Washington's side in this game tonight.
Packers are the better team. I'm confident in them tonight. How about how the total's too high? Why is this 49? Well, why is that total so high? And Washington's improved defense in what we saw last week. So I expect both teams to run the ball. And Green Bay was so dominant last week defensively. I'm shocked at this total. And then it went up.
Keeps going up, yeah.
Yeah, I went under 48, and now we're up to 49 in some spots and 48.5.
Is that because the Washington offense is so like highly thought of, and so it's power rated to the moon?
Well, I know, but that was last year. They didn't play well.
Well, they had 400 yards.
Last week, well, you had to hang on to beat the Giants. If the Giants could cash in at the goal line and not throw the ball, I think that's one thing. And the good Giants defense, though, too. But to me, it's all about Parsons and the impact he can have on this game. And it was a good article about this is the great marriage, which is already a good defense. And now with Howley, how dangerous this could be. And could it be the best defense in the league? On the field against Detroit, the Packers conceded -2 rushing yards in 7 plays, 48 yards on 15 plays without Parsons. Everywhere he went, the Lions made sure they had 2 or 3 hats on him. Dominant on his own, created easier matchups for everyone around him. He had his first sack. Goff got rid of the ball more than half a second quicker when Parsons was on the field, 2.8 seconds compared to when he was off, 3.36, despite Parsons being confined largely to third downs. On the snap, the Packers sacked Goff 3 times and coughed it up 2.4 yards a play, the longest gain going for 16 yards. Betting on Parsons to transform Hafley's defense was like getting in on water before the first day, the guy writes in this article. Yeah. Incredible job. And that's, it's been nothing but hype for the last 7 days, well, probably longer than that once they acquired him. But I think they're rightfully the favorite to win the division, and they just destroyed Detroit. The one thing Detroit did do was they hit Laporta. So the Guru making the case for Ertz over.
Sure.
Catches and receptions.
And he scored a touchdown last week. So there's also this, a couple of props here with Jaden Daniels. His rushing prop earlier today was as low as 43.5. I think it's going up at some books. Surprise, surprise. People betting him to go over. But his longest rush is also listed at 15.5 yards. He went over that number 10 times last year, and he had 68 yards last week. He cleared 43.5 rushing yards 12 times last year, including the playoffs. I think there's an angle here where the Packers try to bring a lot of pressure on him, like Parsons around the edge. That's what he thrives at. And if this guy is going to be as elusive as, he was in year 1, and I think that's going to continue because he's so talented, I think that's going to create some open running lanes here for him tonight. And I think like over 15.5 with the longest rush could be there.
That long?
Right, because like it's going to...
That's a big number.
If they come around like that, and that's going to create some running lanes for him, and he'll take off, and if they don't have a spy on him at that point, I think he might be able to clear that. But also, like that could... I think that overall is going to keep Washington moving the sticks for a lot of this game.
That's why I'm on Love over, because Washington's going to play man and just take off and run. I can't believe his number's that low.
I bet it came down. I bet it over this morning.
You can go over rushing yards and over longest rush, and the guru's on that as well. You can ladder him too. I think Love will take. He took off 3 times against Detroit, but I think there'll be plenty of opportunities for Love to take off and go and leave. He'll get 4.5 yards on the longest rush.
Yeah, I played over 4.5. I think Circa was at 4.5 minus 120 today for overall rushing yards by Jordan Love.
Did you find Debo to have a rush? That was
I did. Over a half a rush was minus 240, and I think they moved it to over 1.5 plus 180 at Bet 365. But his yards came back down, by the way. So it got as high as 7.5 yesterday. Debo's now back down to 4.5 now. But his prop's been moving back and forth like a ping pong match the last 12 hours.
VSiN Pro delivers real-time DraftKings and Circa betting splits. See where the public and sharps are putting their money. The morning email from Bill 80, recapping all the best bets from every host, every guest. 24/7 video, the Pro Tools, the Prop Analyzer, the Mackin and Trends, everything you need to stay ahead of the season. Burke on college, $9.99. Save 50% with an annual subscription. VSiN.com/subscribe today. Sign up now, $9.99. VSiN.com/subscribe.
Matt LaFleur also 23-9 ATS in prime time. Win some, lose some. Coming up next, and we'll update the live Major League Baseball betting board here on Follow the Money. It's VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Welcome in. Thanks for watching today on YouTube TV, listening on Sirius XM channel 158, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, or any of the great affiliates that we have across the country. We are trying to connect right now with Fantasy Football Hall of Famer Paul Charchian. Hopefully that happens here pretty soon. Until then, Paulie, of course it is, can you believe this, the 24th anniversary? 9/11.
No, I can't.
Next year will be a quarter century.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what to say because it was super emotional today. I followed the TSA Instagram account. It's actually quite funny with some of the stuff that people try to get by with.
Yeah.
The TSA Instagram account put a video up today. Never forget. It's the first time I ever saw some of those videos and heard some of the audio. And I was just broken today when I watched it. I tried sharing some of it on my Instagram account, Mitch Moss. But if you don't follow TSA, I'm telling you, if you're going to watch like one video today about 9/11, you have to look at this thing, man. It just crippled me earlier.
We got to know Jim Fossil.
Yeah.
The Giants head coach. And when the Giants went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Ravens.
Great dude.
The following year, they opened up on the road against Denver. And then they lost, and then they were coming back, and they got in. Like I think it was, and they were next to Flight 93, if memory serves, when they got in. And then hours later, what happened? But you had the Jim Fossil Foundation, and he was a great guy. And he said, I told our players, after 9/11, then you took the week off. They were playing the Chiefs. And he said, you wear that NYPD or fire department baseball cap, and I'm telling you, we're honoring these people. I don't want to see it flipped around. I don't want to see the bill up or sideways or something else. I want it front and center with that hat or don't put it on. We won the game, went in the locker room, was like old times. Put our arms together, got on our knees. Everyone got in the picture. Cap was straight forward, and we honored them. He told the story of Giuliani reaching out saying, hey, can you come down to ground zero? He goes, I'm just a football coach. He goes, it would mean a lot. He said, everything in my mind is so visible of what happened. I can replay it over and over and over again. And the whole season after that happened was something where we had to refocus ourselves. And I told the players, you park your car, you get on the bus, you go to New York, Manhattan, and you always see some cars there. And when I left at night, they were mostly all gone. For about 10 days, there were a whole bunch of cars left there. And I can only picture the fact that those people parked their cars, got on the bus, and went over there, and they perished. Tough on your stomach every morning when you went to work every day and saw all those cars sitting there.
Ugh.
And it was hard to get through an interview every time he would tell that story. And you got to know him.
I traveled with him quite a bit because I called the UFL games out here for the Las Vegas Locos.
Yeah, and I did the coaches show. And this guy was so smart, great sense of humor. My favorite Fossil, other than the guarantee, which was good. I'm putting all my chips in the middle.
Yeah.
We are making the playoffs. And they got hot, and they did. But the other one was when he told the story. His phone's ringing. So, because why so many people calling me? What's going on? So Jeremy Shockey's on the Howard Stern show. What's going on? And Shockey says, my goal in life is to have a threesome with a mom and two daughters. And he goes, you idiot, that's a foursome. And then he goes, from now on, you have to clear, through your agent, every interview you ever do. And don't ever go on there again. And he's screaming at Shockey and some of the stories that he had.
How about his first reaction? You idiot, that's not 3, that's 4.
What a great story. Here's Fossil, though, on the story of 9/11 and sharing some of his thoughts.
Paul Tagliabue made the right decision. He made the right decision. I mean, we were not ready. I mean, there was all kinds of things that were so memorable to us. It's like Giant Stadium was a ground where people would drive their car into Giant Stadium, park it in the morning, and get on a bus into New York City. Okay? There might be 200 cars parked there. All right? And I remember seeing it. And that night when I left, that parking lot was full. And it's never that way. And I went, oh, my God. I mean, how many people perished that parked their car here? When I drove back in the next morning, about 6 o'clock in the morning, I'd say there was 150 cars still there. And I thought, it made me sick to think those people parked their cars and went into work in the city, and they probably perished. And, Rich, I got so many letters from people that said, thanks for going to the Super Bowl because now you're on Monday Night Football, and the game was so late, it finished after midnight, that I decided to go in late. I wasn't going to get there early. I was going to take a half a day. And if you guys weren't on Monday Night Football, I'd have probably been in one of those towers. And, people saying thanks for that. I go, geez, really?
It's incredible.
That just hits you in the stomach every time you hear it.
Oh, man.
And that was several years ago on the Rich Eisen show.
Because the game went so late, I took a half day.
Oh,
if they don't go to the Super Bowl. Mercy.
Yeah. So I will tell you this, too. Not only was that guy like a great soundbite, that 9/11 story aside, but like traveling with him, too, when I called those games, and he would sit next to us on the flight, and then he would tell the broadcasting crew to meet with him the day before the game or the morning of the game. And that's whenever you hear about broadcasters telling you hey, this is what I got, they're going to get some pretty good insight on the game. And if they're going to share it, that could be actually some pretty good information to follow along with throughout the contest. I noticed right away the first time that ever happened, the game unfolded to a T how he told my broadcast partner and me what they were going to do. And it was just it was like a painting watching it out there on the football field. That's how good of a coach the guy was. And even at that level, that was called the United Football League. Eventually, players from that league went on to have big impacts in the NFL. You could watch how effective the offense was, from the booth, just to see he gets it. It doesn't matter where that guy was going to coach; he was going to be a good offensive coach. So anyway, that was Jim Fossil, and that's a little rough.
We lost him in 2021.
Has it been that long now?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's tough. Great guy.
Yeah. So, the other, as we move along here on a sports betting network, the other New York team this week is taking money as the Jets are taking on the Bills. That game's down to 5.5 here at Circa. And Ed Oliver was an absolute menace on the defensive line for Buffalo against Baltimore on Sunday night. He was spotted with a walking boot earlier today. So imagine, go back to week 1, what the Bills' defense looked like. I know it's the Ravens' offense, but then how good, again, what if the Steelers' defense is good?
Well, yeah, because it was also they gashed them on the ground, though.
Sure.
You know what the Jets are going to do? Run the ball on them.
And how good they looked against the Steelers?
Yeah, the Steelers couldn't stop their ground attack.
Yeah, so I took, I think this number is going to keep coming down. I took 6.5 with the Jets earlier today. And I know that the game opened up on 7, but that didn't last very long at all. And I don't want to overreact here to what we saw in week 1, but, the Lions offensive coaching staff with their new OC, they have their fingerprints now on this Jets team as they came over with Aaron Glenn, the new head coach here for the Jets. And you got to like what Justin Fields looked like in that first game. And picturing him against this Bills defense that got absolutely gashed by Baltimore for, 42 minutes on Sunday night before the Ravens went into prevent mode on offense or try not to lose the game mode. And if they're not going to have Ed Oliver, man, that's a big loss potentially for him. And so the total, by the way, keeps going up as well. Remember, Paul Bovey was on the show on Monday, professional sports bettor, who bet over 44.5 and over 45. That's up to 46.5 and trending towards 47.
What would you do if you're running the 49ers now? Now Purdy could be out 2-5.
Right.
Mac Jones and Mike White? Oh, boy. This escalated quickly. Kittle out, Purdy out. They can't win. You got to call somebody. Because now it's serious.
What if Kyle Shanahan gets it to work with Mac Jones? Because remember, Michael Lombardi was saying that entire draft that's who they traded up for was Mac Jones.
Yeah, Shanahan wanted him. Got talked out of it. That's the guy he wanted. But my comeback would be, okay, congratulations, you beat the Saints. Probably the worst team in the league. Then you have Arizona up next. Let
me give you this.
I gotta call somebody. Guy could miss 5 weeks now.
Thanks to our buddy Weston here on the program, Guy in the Cornfields. He sent me this earlier today. This was Brian Thomas Jr. in Jacksonville with Mac Jones as a quarterback last year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
7 for 103, 7 for 91 and a touchdown, 9 for 132 and a touchdown, 10 for 105 and 2 touchdowns, 8 for 86, and he had double-digit targets in all those games. My Ricky Pearsall 2025 dream is not dead. If Mac Jones made it work like that once he got clicking last year with Brian Thomas, maybe he comes in here with Kyle Shanahan and they realize, we're going to be okay. I got Ricky Pearsall to throw the ball to.
Coupled with the report that Belichick stopped talking to Mac Jones that year.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to connect with Paul Charchian coming up next, Fantasy Football Hall of Famer. We'll get his thoughts on tonight's game and some fantasy angles as well for Week 2 in the National Football League coming up here on VSiN.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
More on tonight's game and Week 2 National Football League fantasy perspective from Fantasy Football Hall of Famer Paul Charchian with GuillotineLeagues.com, and he is on the Progressive Guest line. Good afternoon, Charch. Thanks for the time today. How's it going?
Excited for a pretty good, what should be a really good Thursday night game, better than last week's for sure. And, I'm excited to see if the Packers are close to the team that we saw last week, so we can really get a sense of whether or not, how much of that's Detroit, how much of that is Micah Parsons, was an already really good defense, and Jordan Love looked good. Where does he do in the second game? There's so many great storylines in this one. I'm very excited for this.
So I know that you want to attack it from a Josh Jacobs angle here, but are you concerned that one or two offensive linemen might miss for the Packers?
Yeah, well, I am, because that does carry some weight here. And last year, offensive line was a wreck, and that really made for a lot of inconsistency. You had players playing the wrong positions. We always want Elton Jenkins playing center whenever we can. He's utility everything guy. Hopefully he doesn't have to move, but if he can, he has to. But we know the consistency gets there when that offensive line is together. So we're gonna be watching this one closely as it gets up closer to kickoff.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right approach there. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt looked great last week. Had that big run, went more than 80 yards. It was a promising start for him. The 7th rounder for Washington after they traded Brian Robinson to the 49ers in the offseason. What do you think he does tonight?
I'm actually somewhat optimistic here.
Okay.
Went through all of his carries. They're only 10, so I don't want to make it sound like I was, that it was a big labor to break this down. 10 carries, 82 yards. Here's the thing that he does that's really special for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. He gets the ball, and when he's got to make a very quick decision about the way this play is setting up and the way his blocking is going, his vision and footwork behind the line of scrimmage is remarkable, and then he's got some jets. So The play, he gets the ball. He needs to make a quick change. The footwork is there for him, and then the acceleration. He had a 40-yard gain, and he's breaking down the right side. It's not quite in the sideline. He's off the sideline. He's got one safety left, Tyler Nubin, that he needs to beat, and he juked Tyler Nubin so hard, the MetLife Stadium crew is still jackhammering his jockstrap out of the field turf there. Oh, it was a great play by Bill. I'm optimistic that he's going to do well here. And frankly, Washington's a little easier to run on than they are to pass on.
What do you want to do with these Packer wide receivers?
I want to avoid them all.
Yeah.
This is setting up just like last year.
Okay.
Now we know, we all thought that Matthew Golden was going to be a much bigger factor right away, right? No Christian Watson. You got Jaden Reed playing with a Jones fracture in his foot. He looked mostly unaffected, but we've seen Jones fractures. Guys have lost seasons on that. I don't know how he played through that. His pregame morphine drip must look like Niagara Falls. He only ran 12 routes. And so I think they're limiting him. Romeo Doubs barely ran half of the routes, half of the passing plays. He ran routes in just half, and he was the high water mark. And Matthew Golden was only on the field for 23 snaps. And this thing feels like it's setting up just like last year. And it's super frustrating to try to figure out which guy is going to be on the field and part of the game plan from week to week. Really tough. And Washington was a shockingly good pass defense last year. Over their last 16 games, going back to last year, they've only given up 8 wide receiver scores. That's it. They just locked down Malik Neighbors, who's better than anybody on the Packers just last week. Malik Neighbors turned 12 targets into 5 scoreless catches last week. So I'm down on all the wide receivers.
Okay, let's hit player props for this weekend coming up, and maybe some fantasy angles here as well. I was thinking about approaching Hunter Henry as a tight end among my plays this week, but you think Kayshon Boutte and his receiving yards prop is a little bit low?
Yep, we're watching his shoulder injury. It's not a little low, Mitch. It's broken. This is a broken line. He is 34.5 yards is Kayshon Boutte's over-under, and he is the Patriots' number 1 receiving option. Unqualified. And you're like, oh, what about Stephon Diggs? Boutte led Patriots receivers in targets, snaps, routes run ahead of Diggs. And Boutte is such a great story. If you don't remember, and I don't blame you if you don't, he was the kid that he was a 5-star recruit out of high school in Louisiana, could have gone to any program he wanted, decided to go to LSU. He's at LSU. He's beating out Malik Neighbors. I mean, he's the number 1 guy at LSU. He is a true phenom, but it goes to his head a little bit. He starts dealing with injuries. He's got attitude problems, and then the knockout punch for Kayshon Boutte. He's betting on Louisiana football and he gets busted, and he gets knocked out of college football, and he's got to go to the pros too early. So he gets drafted by the Patriots at 20 years old. Now he's only 23. He's the same age as a lot of rookies. And he, in his 3rd year, Kayshon Boutte's good. His last three of his last 4 games, going back to last year, 95 yards, 117 yards, and last week, 103 yards. And this guy's over-under 34.5 yards as the go-to receiver and against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
This is a Dolphins team with a stench of death on them. Mitch and Paulie, do you remember my visit in studio in July when we talked about how Miami's got a pathway to be the 1st overall pick in next year's draft and the worst team? And we talked about McDaniels is the first fired coach.
Yep.
All of that stuff coming into focus here. Yep. And the loss of Jalen Ramsey in the secondary is huge. They're going to have to play Rasul Douglas at starting cornerback for Miami. He was a street free agent 2 weeks ago.
That's
Kayshon
awesome.
Boutte, way over.
Yep, he was great against the Raiders. Good breakdown. What do I do with 49er players now?
Well, okay. I mean, mostly we're going to avoid, Mac Jones isn't a death sentence. I mean, it's okay. He's, I don't blame you if you didn't break down 7 games of his tape with Jacksonville, but let me just tell you, he averaged 0.8 touchdown passes per game. But he also put Brian Thomas on a solid NFL start to his NFL career. So not disaster stuff. You're going to start Christian McCaffrey anyway. The guy that you care about is Ricky Pearsall. So let's just talk about him because he's the only real swing guy for the 49ers right now. Put up 108 yards last week. But here's the thing you need to know. And without George Kittle and Juwan Jennings banged up, he's going to get a lot of attention. The average pass attempt to Ricky Pearsall last week, 21 yards. 21.
Wow.
If he's going to do that on like 8, 9, 10 pass attempts, we're looking at potentially a still really good game from Pearsall. And he's the guy that I would be sure to start.
Do you know, like, top of your head, like, what's average for that? You said 21 yards for Pearsall. Like, what's a good number?
9. 9 yards is a typical wide receiver average distance of throw. And Pearsall was at 21 last week.
Wow. Okay. That's very good. Okay. So I think most of us as football fans were hoping and kind of rooting that Nick Chubb was going to be 100% healthy the entire year and take off and be like in the mix to win the comeback player of the year. What do you specifically make of his matchup coming up on Monday night against Tampa Bay?
His over-under is 49.5. We're going to go under, even though Chubb looked good last week, and it was great to see him. He actually led all starting running backs with a 39% avoided tackle rate last week. He finished 6th in yards over expectation. There's clearly a mandate for Houston to keep using Nick Chubb, and you can drop all the rest of the Texans runners right now. But everything else I'm going to tell you is all bad about this matchup. First, the Houston offensive line was already bad, and it lost starting center Jake Andrews, who got carted off with a high ankle sprain. They're using Ed Ingram at right guard, who is he is horrible, and he's hurt too. They actually have to go to somebody worse than him potentially. Houston last week ranked 26th in ESPN's run block win rate, and honestly, that's generous. And here comes Tampa, a great run defense last year that finished 4th best in rushing yards allowed, 4th best in rushing touchdowns allowed. And this year, in week 1, they finished 3rd best in ESPN's run stuff win rate. They just held Bijan Robinson to 2 yards per carry last week. And here's the amazing thing on this, why we're going under on Nick Chubb. Going back to last year, 5 straight Buck games, no running back has topped 26 rushing yards. That's it. This is a great run defense, and I can't advocate for Chubb, even though I was delighted to see him look good in that first game.
Wow. I never would have guessed that. Only 26 yards. One more under. JSN went off in his first game with Sam Darnold against the 49ers.
Great call, Charge.
Yep.
Great call, buddy.
So what about the guy that's going to be playing like on the field with him at times, Cooper Kupp, this week?
Cooper Kupp, over-under is 30.5. We're going under against Pittsburgh. Just 2 catches for 15 yards last week, so maybe this feels obvious. But what I'm really I worry that Kupp wants to play out of the slot where he's always been effective with the Rams. That's also where Jackson Smith-Njigba likes to run, prefers to run from the slot. So we still see it. We saw Kupp get enough work, but we saw some signs that I did not like. They kicked Kupp outside for half his routes. We know in LA he was not effective as an outside receiver. He dropped a pass. Last year, he only dropped 2 all year, and he already dropped a pass in week 1. And when you've got worries about somebody's age, these are little things that just make you go, I don't know about this. But here's the real killer. Tough matchup in the slot with Pittsburgh's new cornerback, Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey, not normally a slot guy. With Pittsburgh making this trade, we didn't know for sure how they'd use him. They used him in slot coverage last week, and here's what he gave up as a slot cornerback. 1 catch, 6 yards, and had 2 pass breakups for Jalen Ramsey. Brutal matchup for Cooper Kupp.
So good. You're the best. At Paul Charchian on X. GuillotineLeagues.com is the website. Thanks, pal. Good luck tonight.
Thanks, friends.
Drew Butler on Georgia, Tennessee, and the line move coming up next.
Follow the money. That's what I always say. You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Good to have you on board.
My fault, buddy. This hour is sponsored by Better. Better Picks, a daily fantasy sports app where your sports knowledge turns into real cash fast. Download Better or visit better.app now. Sign up today. Get a free $10. No deposit necessary. Get Better now. BETR. Better.app. Go.
Good save, Paul. We head out here to the Progressive Guest Line to begin the hour, talk some college football. As a longtime friend of the show, Drew Butler joins the program, 92.9 The Game in Georgia. He is with the Punt and Pass podcast as well. Drew, good afternoon. Been a minute. How are you, my friend?
Man, great to see you guys. Great to be back on the show. Thanks so much for the invite. I'm great. I saw Paulie a couple weeks ago. I was out in Vegas signing up for Millions. Was on to be my soon-to-be brother-in-law's bachelor party. And, Mitch, we missed you, man, but glad to be here.
Yeah. How'd the bachelor party weekend go?
It was successful. It was good. We all made it back, and we had fun. And I took the guys. It was a lot of their first times in Vegas, so I had to swing them by Circa, and they were amazed by the sportsbook. It's always the best.
Yeah, tough not to be amazed when you see it for the first time. So let's begin with this game on the board coming up on Sunday, obviously. The team that you follow, the team that you played for, Georgia. I'm looking at a tweet from Todd Furman from last night to remind people that before the season started, the games of the year, at the Westgate here in Las Vegas, Georgia was 8.5 in this game. On the road, Knoxville against Tennessee. And then, like all week, the biggest talking point has been, how the hell is there more money on Tennessee? It was that 3.5 for a long time. I'm looking at the screen right now, Drew. There are multiple books still with 3.5 out there. Most of them are at 4 right now. But what do you think of this whole overall move on the point spread?
Yeah, it seems like it's settled in at 3.5. I think going back to game of the year lines, there was just a lot of unknowns at both quarterback positions. Gunnar Stockton obviously played in the second half of the SEC championship game for Georgia last year, and then started in the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame. And then obviously the Nico Iamaleava, Joey Aguilar trade that Tennessee went through. And we're still kind of there, right? Tennessee, Josh Heupel's high-powered offense, they're flashing over 100-plus points so far in their first 2 games. So they've got confidence in Heupel's scheme, and Aguilar certainly got that down pat from the quarterback position. And then on the flip side for Georgia, there's just a lot of hesitancy from the fan base, from people who follow the team. The offensive line's dealt with some injuries through the first 2 weeks, regardless of the lesser opponents that they've played. And I think you saw that when people saw the opening number of 7 or 7.5 rush towards Tennessee and say, this line's way out of whack. No way Georgia's going to be able to cover that number. And you saw that huge drop really in the first 48 hours, and it settled in at 3.5. But guys, I think for the last 3 years straight, I've been on this show during the Georgia-Tennessee week, and this always seems to happen for whatever reason. Pros and Joes think that the Lions way off, and then it settles in a little bit lower. Maybe on game day it'll tick back towards Georgia's side. But this is a recurring theme here, and the most important thing to remember is that Kirby Smart has been Josh Heupel's Achilles heel. I mean, it is the one monkey that Josh Heupel has not been able to get off his back so far in the SEC. He took down Nick Saban. He's done everything that he needs to do. He got Tennessee to the playoffs. But Tennessee's only lost 1 game at home in Neyland Stadium since 2022, and it was to Georgia in 2023, 38-10. The last 4 losses that Tennessee has had to Georgia have come by an average of 31 points. So there is a scheme differential here, and Kirby Smart's defense in the past has been able to slow down that high-flying Josh Heupel offense.
No doubt. Excellent breakdown. Where you at with Stockton in the offense, and as you struggled with Austin Peay and Marshall so far?
Yeah, they look good against Marshall, right? I mean, 45-7, they ran the ball. There was not a lot of explosive plays deep downfield in the pass game, but transfer wide receiver Zachariah Branch, he was a 5-star from Southern Cal. He came over, caught a swing pass out of the backfield, took it to the house for about 47 or 50 yards. He is an elite guy, and I think that's somebody who everybody should watch out for on the field this weekend because it's a 5-star game. And simply put, it is going to be a raucous atmosphere inside Neyland Stadium. That place is crazy loud, guys. If Tennessee wins the toss and defers, I mean, Gunnar Stockton's not going to be able to hear himself think when he's up there at the line of scrimmage. And I'm really interested to see how Georgia's offensive line looks. 2 tough injuries that they've had to deal with so far. Ernest Green, who's an experienced tackle, and true freshman guard Juan Gaston went out against Marshall. Guys, he's the first true freshman to start for a Kirby Smart Georgia team since Andrew Thomas back in 2017. Andrew, of course, was the top 10 pick for the New York Giants. And Juan Gaston is a massive human being. If you don't have consistency up front, it's hard to get anything going, especially in pass protection. On our podcast this past week, Jake Fromm was breaking down the film, and he said, look, even against Austin Peay, Georgia was doing 7-man protections, just trying to give Gunnar Stockton time to deliver the ball down the field. Wide receivers were open, but there was leakage up front. The good thing for Georgia specifically is that Tennessee's top 2 defensive backs are out, and they've got some issues on their defensive line front as well. So I think you're going to see Georgia go in there and try to dominate the lines of scrimmage. They're going to have to run the ball. They're going to have to control the pace of the game. You have to limit and at least somewhat tame down that crazy Tennessee fan base to get Gunnar in the flow of the game. And then I think you look to a guy like Zachariah Branch. They've got tons of talent at wide receiver at Georgia this year. They certainly went to the portal and said, we need to address the drop passes we had a year ago. Colby Young is back. He is a big body threat in the red zone. Noah Thomas was one of the highest producing SEC wide receivers last year at Texas A&M. Zachariah Branch, Dylan Bell's still there. London Humphreys. Guys, they've got a ton of talent. Gunnar Stockton just needs some time in the pocket, and he's got to trust in himself to deliver the ball down the field.
Okay. Yeah, because you brought up those 2 wins so far. But in that, to confirm, I think here, Austin Peay, that game, Georgia also had like 0 explosive plays, right? I think that was the official number. Not
0.
a single explosive play in that game. But you think as long as they get Stockton protection, like those plays are coming?
I think they are. You have to, right? And they've been extremely vanilla in the play calling. Look, when you play Marshall and Austin Peay, it's not like you're going to go deep in the bag and start throwing stuff all over the field. I think that's designed. This is much unlike how Georgia started their past seasons going up against Clemson's, right? Doing the neutral site games, top 10 matchups. This has been way different. Georgia in week 1, guys, was supposed to be playing at UCLA in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, but when the Big 12 expanded, that home and home got canceled. So they had to scramble and go get Marshall, pay them to come play in Athens. That's why Georgia's schedule a little bit funky to start this season. But just going back to the Kirby Smart versus Josh Heupel matchup, which I think might be more important than what we see on the field. In each of the last 3 games in this matchup, Tennessee has not had a 200-yard passer, and they have not had a passing touchdown against Georgia.
Ooh.
Those are Hendon Hooker teams. Those are Joe Milton teams.
Yeah.
Like, these are guys who were high-flying power offenses. No 200-yard passer, no passing touchdowns against Georgia in the last 3 games in this matchup. To me, that's a scheme thing. That's Kirby Smart saying, we know how to slow down this Josh Heupel offense. And if you look back at Josh Heupel's history with all the teams he's been at, you got a good quarterback, you got some guys that can run routes, we'll scheme you up and you'll have some guys running wide open downfield. It has not happened against Georgia these past few years.
I really like this Oklahoma team, but my God, the last 7 games are against ranked opponents. Can they make? Do you want to make a case to make the playoff, or just say I can't do that, or even going over the adjusted win total now based on that schedule?
No, you're exactly right. First off, John Mateer is the real deal. I mean,
Yes.
you guys were talking about him all summer, the production that he had at Washington State. With that type of experience, you knew that he was going to be able to at least put Oklahoma on his back from an offensive perspective and give them a chance in some games. The schedule is no joke. I mean, that is absolutely a brutal schedule. They did right for themselves last week by taking care of Michigan at home. I think with a scrappy quarterback like John Mateer and a defense that's kind of playing with their hair on fire, Oklahoma is going to be a team to watch out for. Another team in the SEC, guys, with an absolutely brutal schedule is Florida. Florida, I think, is a live dog this weekend. I think it's a great buy low spot for Florida. Everybody, of course, wants Billy Napier out after that disaster last week against South Florida. But with the personal foul spitting incident, I mean, they had USF backed way up. They could have come out with a win right there. And I think this line would have been different. So I think it's a buy low spot on Florida this weekend in Death Valley. Getting more than a touchdown, I'd check that one out for sure.
You can follow Drew on X. He is at Drew Butler. The podcast is called the Punt and Pass Podcast. I'm a Wisconsin guy, born and raised in that state. So they've always kind of been the same team in my lifetime anyway. Run the ball, play good defense, and it kind of got away from them under Luke Fickell. However, it appears, and I get the competition here, appears as if that defense might be pretty good again this year. Their numbers don't lie so far, like elite across the country. That said, I don't know what the offense is going to do against Alabama. It's a 21-point spread here. Are you expecting a blowout?
That's just a lot of points. You know, I'm quite frankly not sure. Yes, of course, Alabama looked great. Ty Simpson was perfect a week ago against Louisiana Monroe. But, man, they got bullied around by Florida State in week 1. What's Wisconsin going to do? Which identity are they going to show up with? If the defense is as good as the statistics prove, I think that they could certainly hang in there. Confuse Ty Simpson a little bit, get after him, make him uncomfortable. I'll tell you this, if they do keep it close, that stadium inside Bryant-Denny is going to turn on those boys really, really quick. It could be an interesting scene. I think it's too many points. I would take 21 with Wisconsin to keep it close. This is a big game for Luke Fickell, too. I had higher expectations when he was hired at Wisconsin, hoping he can get a morale win for his team in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. We'll see how close they can keep it, but I would say 21 is too much.
What if DeBoer goes 8-4?
There might be serious issues in the state of Alabama if he goes 8-4. I can tell you right now, being here in Atlanta, the Alabama fans not happy with that week 1 loss to Florida State. Alabama does have a bye week next week. So does Georgia, gearing up for the big Alabama-Georgia matchup in Athens on September 27th to round out the first month of college football. But that's going to be a really big one too. So 8-4, Paulie, that might be tough, especially with what happened last year. You go 2 straight years not in the college football playoff. I think a lot of Crimson Tide fans would be wanting to look elsewhere, but that buyout is just astronomical. Those are tough decisions to make, no question.
Yeah, and by the way, I think that whole let's go to Dabo Swinney after this, whoever's going to be, I think that's long gone now. That's not going to happen anymore. Yeah. You can follow
that's
Drew.
Gone. I mean,
yep, go ahead.
I was going to say the name going around the SEC circles right now is John Gruden, right? If Billy Napier's out, is Gruden going to go to Florida? If Kalen DeBoer's out, could Gruden go to Alabama? I don't know, but you'll start hearing all sorts of names, no question about it.
Great spot, Drew. Thanks so much for the time. Enjoy the game this weekend.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Back at you. There you go. Drew Butler, 92.9 The Game in Georgia. The podcast is called the Punt and Pass Podcast here on the Progressive Guest Line. We'll get into a game that in college football tonight, a lot of people liking the dog, and Major League Baseball as well. Teams in this spot are undefeated over the past 2 seasons.